So in this segment, we're going to be talking about it's clear the UK's Brexit trade deals are about political, not economic gain. So this article written by John Stone, which is true. The UK are looking for it's pure politics. We're looking at getting trade deals with countries, especially ones that the EU haven't gotten trade deals with, and then we're going to go on a victory lap and pretend we're better than the EU when these trade deals will be ultimately worse than the trade deals the EU get. And if you want evidence of that, look at the fact that the UK-Japan deal is worse than the EU-Japan deal. Even though we had the basis of everything we needed right there already. We could have cut and pasted it, but Japan said, actually, big man, we're going to need you to make some changes to be more favourable to the land of the rising sun. So Parliament's influential and cross-party Public Accounts Committee has warned that the government's Brexit-free trade agreements may not have any actual economic benefit, which is true, 0.02% at best, which is nothing. The MPs on the committee also say the Department for International Trade has been too secretive and not kept Parliament properly informed about what it's doing because Parliament voted to give away so much power to the Department for Trade that they don't have to tell us much. This is not a particularly new revelation. The Independent reported last year that the economic boost from all the trade agreements so far is dwarfed 178 times by the expected hit from leaving the EU single market. We've reported at length about MPs' concerns about the lack of scrutiny in negotiations, because they don't have to be open and honest with us. We claim to have voted to take back control, yet we've given away control to ministers. Simply put, FTAs have a relatively limited impact on boosting economic activity because the world is economically so liberalised. Removing tariffs and quotas has increasingly diminished returns, which I didn't know about that. I thought tariffs and quotas would be very prohibitive to trade, but maybe John Stone is wrong about that point. I would assume they are, given that Australia follows a very heavy trade approach of getting rid of as many quotas and tariffs as they can for agricultural products. So maybe he's wrong here. I don't know. Or maybe on the grand scale of it, he's right. Who knows? This is why the government's own Department for International Trade can come up with such embarrassing figures in the process of justifying the deals. The elusive agreement with the US is supposed to give a boost of 0.16% of GDP over 15 years. We can dream, which that's 0.16 best case scenario. The New Zealand deal claimed to provide a princely 0.0% jump. Yes, you read that right. It's 0.02% at best, minus 0.02% at worst, and then probably zero because zero is in the middle. Let's be real. The government says there could be hidden benefits to the agreements we cannot predict, but there might be easily hidden drawbacks, which makes sense, especially as more and more of these agricultural kind of farms and things like that go bankrupt. There'll be more and more side effects to see what happens, because the government, I don't think, has factored those in to their impact assessments. Also, the fact that if there is a crisis, say in Australia, and they have to reduce exports, what happens to us then, or even New Zealand? But the simple fact is these agreements are not being done for the microscopic economic benefits they will bring, but for their political benefits. The problem for advocates of Brexit has always been that it is difficult to come up with anything positive that leaving the EU will allow you to take back control. Sure, but to do what? Which is true. It's a good question. Take back control to do what? You've taken control back from no one. You've killed freedom of movement for two different groups of people from the EU and people from the UK. You've screwed over a load of pensioners in retirement places like Spain, the Costa del Sol, whatever the hell they call it. I mean, you've just ruined everything, really. The P&O thing, which isn't that really related to Brexit, but from what I've heard, the staff workers for P&O that are based in the EU weren't fired. It was the British ones that were fired because our working regulations are so low that they can get away with this stuff. Did you take back control to fix that? Because you could have fixed that whilst we're members of the EU, but you chose not to. A certain percentage of the population, given voice by some politicians, has long wanted to shut out Eastern Europeans by ending free movement of people, which, again, racism, fairly obvious, but, you've done that, and now the UK is facing massive shortages of vacancies across multiple different sectors, because these are jobs that, people argue, especially people on the left argue, these jobs don't pay enough, that's why British people don't want to do it. which, yeah, people should be getting pay increases, but you're not going to get that through Brexit or through the end of freedom of movement. Really, some industries have gotten big pay increases, but not most of them. You're going to get that through a government that wants to actually raise minimum wage, get strong unions, and really help workers, which we simply will not have under the Tories. This is thankfully not a universally popular view, which maybe is more popular than you think, big man. So advocates have searched in vain for a positive message, thus Global Britain was born, because if your best argument is we've stopped foreigners coming here, that's not going to be great. Like much good public relations, Global Britain is about compensating for your weaknesses. Brexit is easily presentable as insular and backwards and will cut us off from the world, which is true. You know, the EU are having constant talks about what they can do to kind of stifle Russia, and the UK aren't a part of it. You know, Boris Johnson compared Brexit to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the EU are like, all right, big man, you're not coming to the meetings anymore. You can sit outside. Actually, you can't even sit outside. You can go play with your trains in Westminster or Number 10. Talk about how it will actually let us go out into the world. The Spectator magazine once put it, which, you know, we are going out into the world. You know, we can rally support and do things, but, you know, the simple fact is we weren't in the room when the EU decided to cut Russia out of SWIFT. It was EU member states that did it. We could have been part of those negotiations and talks pre-Brexit, but at the end of the day, we've taken ourselves out of the most powerful rooms in Europe. Britain could not sign its own free trade agreements inside the EU's customs union, so doing it is a nice example of something you can do after Brexit, but we would have been a part of every single EU deal that was signed. We would have been a part of all of those pre-Brexit, and we would have said, oh, look, we don't want to sign this deal. You know, Theresa May scuppered the EU-India deal because she didn't want visas for easier visas for Indians to come here. Now, the UK is desperate for a deal with India, to the point where we'll happily make it easier for Indian people to come here. You know, make the visa requirements lesser for them. Now we're desperate, you know, but under Theresa May, we scuppered it. We could have had an EU-India trade deal, but thanks to her, predominantly, we don't. And it shows you that, you know, whilst we're part of the EU, we did have huge sway over trade deals. And, you know, the EU-India deal, which, if it does happen, will be far better than a UK-India trade deal. It also sounds great, like something that should make you richer. So the government has talked about it a lot. You know, they talk about how much it'll increase GDP in the millions. How much it'll improve the economy in the millions, which, you know, everyone's like, oh, another 20 million in the economy, that's great, but in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing for an economy the size of the UK. Unfortunately, as MPs are beginning to cotton onto it, it does not make you sound very much richer at all. Britain had free trade agreements inside the EU all along, negotiated as part of a trade bloc with far more bargaining power than it will ever have now, but it sounds good, so the government will keep talking about it because, you know, people don't understand the size and the scale of the British economy. You know, a few million doesn't make that much of a big difference. You know, you might think, oh, if they invested those millions into, you know, my local area, it would be great, but that's not how it works. It's not what they're going to do. And, you know, if you live in a constituency with a lot of farms that's heavily reliant on the farms, you're going to be in for a rough ride, because a lot of those farms may end up going bankrupt or just cutting back. Or giving it up for environmental reasons, which isn't going to help you that much. Sure, you might have a nice new nature walk to go on, but how much does that actually contribute to not the broader economy, but the local economy, which will be not much at all? Because farms do generate business via butchers, farmhands, and other things that are linked to it, lorry drivers that are linked to the farms that you need, milk producers, yogurt producers, all of these things. But, you know, that stuff will go and local economies will be decimated. But anyways, we can buy meat from Australia, I guess. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.